Welcome, Gloria, to the Collaborative Research Center Origin and Function of Metaorganisms here in Kiel.
Thank you for having me.
You are a Bachelor of Science in Ecology, a Master of Science in Animal Nutrition, and a PhD in Microbiology, and a distinguished professor in the medical department of New York University. What a career. In the last decades, you focused on studying natural societies and comparing them to Western societies, realizing that our Western lifestyle has several aspects which compromise our health. So what is so different between the Western lifestyle in terms of host microbe interactions and microbiome compared to the natural societies which you visit in Peru or in Africa or in other countries?
So thank you for having me here. And so that's a very important question that I think hasn't been fully studied, and we need to understand a lot more. What is urbanization? And what happens? What do we change with urbanization? It's a very complex process that changes a lot of factors. What we know is we can study the consequences. And we do associations. So we have learned two things. When we compare our urban societies with societies that live in the jungle or in the African savannas, with traditional hunter-gatherer, gardening lifestyles, we can see that our diversity has enormously decreased. Our gut microbiome diversity, our skin diversity. And we can also see that our home environment microbes are also less diverse and very poor in environmental bacteria. So we are changing our internal environment, and we are changing also the exposure to microbes, natural microbes.
What are the troubles of the Western lifestyle in terms of which type of diseases are you seeing now, which maybe natural societies never see?
So we know there is an association between urbanization and increase in new diseases that are unprecedented.
For example?
For example, type 1 diabetes, celiac disease, atopies, obesity, asthma. These are diseases that are only increasing as societies urbanized, and that were never there in the prevalence that we have them now in the old days. Some people even say that autism is increasing and Alzheimer is increasing. So we need to really understand, are the changes that we generate with our modern practices are they driving these epidemics?
So when you do your field work with these people, that means you never see obese people there, you never see Alzheimer people there?
Yes, so there is these peoples are survivors. They have very high infant mortality. They don't have medicine, they don't have antibiotics. Precisely, they don't have what we have benefited from to prolong our lives. But if they survive childhood, then they will get into adulthood. And if they survive, there is another bottleneck of high mortality in the age of 20s, childbirth for women, accidents for men, then they can live very long. So I'm not saying that they have a healthier and better lifestyle that will prolong their lives because they live in nature. But the point is we are compromising our health by doing interventions that insult our biology, basically. So what I think we need to understand what are the perturbations, and again look for health with a vision, with an evolutionary vision that medicine completely lacks today. We need to solve that and address that in order to optimize. We want to live long, but we want to live healthy.
Mm-hmm. So when people are listening to you and reading your papers and seeing you on TV or in interviews, then many of them get then a very quick and simple, to my mind, too simple reaction. And now there's another generation of books coming out which goes on paleo diet. And so people learn from you that nutrition in these natural societies are, of course, is very different, and they take much more natural products and so on. Then now, is the recommendation now paleo diet? So we go back what these natural societies really use for their daily food, and then that will make us automatically healthy again? Is that the message you want to give us?
So we need to understand how diet modulates the microbiome, and what is the window of possibilities for that modulation, because it might be that there is little you can do in adults in terms of bringing new diversity. We simply don't know. What we need is to expand our research into societies that eat unprocessed food, because we think that they are eating a more chemically diverse food that may be driving the microbial diversity. We live in an illusion of food diversity, which is probably artificial, is not real. The difference, chemical difference between a pancake, bread, or other flour foods is probably very minimal. We have the illusion of having diversity, but processed food really simplify the chemistry of the food. So I do think high diversity, I would expect high diversity in the diet, in the substrates, to drive high diversity also in the gut. But there is the other component, which is the human microbiome part, and how diverse the mothers are there in comparison to us, our mothers, because the initial seeding of the babies is maternal. So we have gone through bottlenecks of diversity in the last few hundred years, and that may be reflected in what we see today in this very low. We have lost almost half of the OTUs, bacterial OTUs diversity in relation to them, and to them in the Amazon jungle or in Africa. So when you see the traditional societies living not modern lifestyles, regardless of the continent, they look more alike than we do. And the US is the lowest, the one having the lowest diversity.
Babies are born sterile, but then the newborn, all of a sudden, when it leaves the mother, is exposed to an enormous variety of microbes. And then, as you say, it must have a healthy microbiome to be healthy. So how does that happen? A newborn gets here, and then within minutes or hours is colonized, and that seems to be an important step. What you have learned about that?
So first, we know that the delivery canal of babies in mammals is next to the rectum, is next to the anal orifice. And before mammals evolved, and with one exception, which is in mammals, animals deliver their babies through one single canal. So mammals develop a parallel birth canal, with the exception of the ornithorynk, and we think this is adaptive. The canal is covered with very milk-relevant microbes. In the human species, the maternal vagina is covered with a lot of lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, bacillus, bacteria that use milk, or that are nourished by milk products, which don't go to the baby. They don't nourish the baby. So this is not random. It seems evolution has led to mammals being born already colonized. We get colonized as soon as the membranes break. During labor, which in humans is a long process, unfortunately for us, and during crossing the birth canal. And then that baby that is fully covered, that has swallowed this bacteria and is fully covered everywhere, undergoes site selection. The mouth becomes, within the first week, that uniform inoculum is selected differentially in each body site. So this is a normal process, but we humans do C-sections. So C-section is a composite of two important factors that affect microbial transmission. One is bypassing the birth canal, the vagina, and the second is antibiotics, because it's a surgery. So it's a major impact that my lab has been studying.
So many modern ladies decide now to deliver by a cesarean section. That would mean that they deliberately expose their babies, their newborns, to invisible but obviously important changes and challenges which would be not there if the baby would be born normal, with normal birth. Is that what you recommend, that cesarean section should be used why it was invented in emergency cases, and now it's kind of a cosmetic way of delivering a baby, but it exposes babies unnecessarily to an unpredictable and maybe unnatural microbiome?
So I have had the chance to see how life-saving C-sections can be. In the jungle, 1 to 2 babies out of 10 will die, and mothers have also very high maternal mortality. So C-sections are just like antibiotics. They are life-saving when they are needed. The problem comes when we abuse. When we abuse practices that have a cost, they are not free, but the benefits are much bigger than the costs when in a life-threatening situation. When we have a society like many in South America, especially Brazil, where people have the choice of having their babies by C-section with no medical recommendation, there is the assumption that C-sections don't have long-lasting consequences. And what our work shows is that it does. It does have consequences on the microbiome. And we have done an experiment where we expose C-section-born babies to vaginal fluids of the mother, and we have shown ecologically that the vaginal populations colonize, and the babies look more like if they were born vaginally. The question is, so what? Does that restore health? Does that decreases the risk of celiac disease, asthma, allergies, and obesity that we associate with C-section and antibiotics? The answer is we don't know, because that requires a very long study, at least 5 years, of many babies born by C-section or vaginally, followed up and really measure the risk outcome, and then have the restore C-section exposed babies and determine how much of the risk does the microbes restore. We don't have the answer to that, but in principle, we think this restoration is a very sound ecological idea. It's very hard to have doctors agreeing, especially because of the fear of infections, and also the fear that we have developed to microbes, against microbes. And there is this perception that newborns, the bacteria may be bad for newborns. And we think that there are natural bacteria at birth that should be good for newborns. We just have to demonstrate their functions and phenotypes and demonstrate that they really matter for health.
So modern technology, as I see now, modern technology has made an invisible world of microbes visible, and also tells us now they seem to be not only a co-evolved importance, but they are essential part of ourself. When you think about where the research from here now goes and should go in 5-year or 10-year term, and maybe we think again on what you told us before on your focusing on the diet in natural societies compared to our Western societies. Here in our institution, we have a research group focused on so-called functional food, and that is trying to understand what are the essential good parts of food, and can we somehow formulate the healthy food for that. What would you recommend such a research group to include in functional food after the experience with your comparison between Western style and natural societies?
I think probably the most important time is strict lactation, where we have the simplest food of our life in terms of at least the single food. Is the period of time when we don't eat solids, but just the maternal secretion, which is a very complex compound. But for some reason, nature evolved to have mammals not eating any solid, but just that liquid during the most important window of development, where when the brain develops, the immune system, the metabolism, and it takes babies or little animals to be well developed enough to be able to smell, respond to stimulus, have locomotion. Before that development, nature wants babies not to eat but the white liquid, wonderful, complex, that we don't understand. We don't understand milk. I think we need to understand what is nourishing whom, what goes to the baby and why to the bacteria, why is it important that we don't perturb that during that important development, what happens when we perturb, what are the key bacteria, because only in the extent we can understand the natural process, we can restore and improve medicine.
There's lots of industry, of course, behind children food, or so newborn and very early children food. And as I see it, and as I remember from my daughter's bringing up, this is always with the concept of sterile, well-defined, and super clean, and that's the dogma behind, and industry has many reasons to follow that up, but there are strict rules. A colleague of us, Brett Finlay, just published a book which has the provocative title, Let Them Eat Dirt. That's a difference between the industrial desire to produce sterile children food and a medical children doctor who says, let them eat dirt. Can you bridge that discrepancy? So
I would say there are two components, two phases of development.
Should industry add dirt now to the children food, or so what do you think?
When you see an Amerindian or a Hadza in Tanzania raising their children, the first thing you observe is the baby is always with the mother. The baby sleeps with the mother, stays with the mother 24 hours a day. The environment of that baby is completely overwhelmed by maternal exposure. It's only after the strict lactation when there is a very intense exploration of the environment. That's when the babies eat dirt and the other mammals. They start exploring independently, and away from the mother, they started getting a second phase of exposure, which is non-self, non-human. And I think in our clean societies, we perturb both. We perturb the exposure to mom. We raise, if we don't have C-sections, which is at least 1 in 3 babies in the US, 1 in 2 in Brazil, then we still have the babies in the hospitals with interventions that probably perturb the transmission. And then we bring the babies to a house that is very clean, clean of soil and clean of plants and clean of animals, clean of nature. And not only that, the first phase, which is maternal, we break it. We put the babies to sleep alone in a different room, and we use technology to monitor the babies. We see the babies on a screen, we hear the babies alone, sleeping on its own. So that, I think that's an insult to nature. The baby should be much more with the mother. In the second phase, we have extremely clean houses where, we call dirt dirty. It comes from dirt. We don't like to have microbes from soil or plants in our houses. I think we can do better, and we can, I believe that we can restore respect of our biology, go back to nature with our technological society. We don't need, people ask me, do you mean we need to live like the Aborigines or like the Amerindians? No, but we need to understand and respect nature and understand we are a product of evolution. We need to respect biology to optimize health.
Thank you very much. That's a very strong and a good statement. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.